Hello and welcome to Drive-In Double Feature. I'm Nathan.
I'm Ryan.
And this is the podcast where we talk about 2 movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday, talking about your favorite B movies. And today we're talking about 1977 Mario Bava Shock. And so this is a Giallo movie. This is an Italian Giallo movie. This is our first time covering that genre on the on Drive-In Double Feature. We did talk about it before on Trashy Boys, what we did before this. So just in case you haven't seen that, the Giallo is normally associated with like serial killers. It's usually slasher movies. It's the proto-slasher. But they also covered a lot of supernatural stuff, and that's what we're talking about today. It's kind of like a supernatural horror movie. So yeah, easy as softball as usual. But what's your favorite? Let's see. Well, maybe not your favorite, but what's your experience with Giallo?
I don't have like a deep experience with it, but I have enjoyed a lot of Giallo movies. I've seen Opera. That was a really good one. I've seen Deep Red. I mean, Suspiria is like the crowning achievement. I've seen that one. And one that I keep saying we're going to tentatively talk about is New York Ripper.
Yeah. Oh, man. New York Ripper's been on the list since the beginning. Now, I mean, I'm a big Giallo fan. I haven't seen as many as I want, but I think they just are they can be so weird, and I love that about them. And you mentioned all great ones because those were all, most of what you named was Dario Argento, who is like the king of this genre. Mario Bava, this is actually his last movie, but he's considered like the actual like godfather because he originated a lot of what the genre became.
I've been wanting to see a lot more of his movies. In fact, like on my watch list for the longest time has been Black Sunday, and I've been wanting to see that one as well.
Yeah, but Black Sunday is probably his most popular, and then Blood and Black Lace is also one of his most popular ones, and I'd highly recommend that one. That one covers the Giallo of like really popping colors, like beautiful, like to look at. Now, I will say this one is a little more muted than I would say than most Giallos as far as colors go, but Shock is it's a very weird story. I did not know what to expect going in, and it's all over the place, man.
I was about to say, this movie is definitely not short on the weird factor at all. It is. I felt it felt so gross. There's so many uncomfortable moments in this movie. I was just like, wanted to take a shower afterwards.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of what we talked about in Trashy Boys Don't Torture a Duckling, where because this involves kids, it just adds an element of like grossness into it, especially when we get into like what the context of everything is. So this movie stars Daria Nicolodi, who is actually mostly in Argento movies, and she showed up in this one. She's previously crazy, and her old husband, her ex-husband, killed himself, and she had to live through that and is now moving back into the home where her husband killed herself, and then they experience a haunting. Right? That seems like a very basic haunting story. But where it gets a little weird is pretty close to the beginning, the son begins to be possessed by the dad, by the dead dad.
Oh. So, I mean, that alone is a solid enough premise for a horror movie.
Yeah.
The part that I don't like, which, okay, I'll say it now, I didn't hate the movie. I didn't. I thought it was decent. I didn't love it, but it was they add an element to where the boy who is possessed by his dead father starts doing a lot of sexual
Yeah.
activities, like not doesn't do anything to the mother, but it's like really tiptoeing on that line.
No, I mean, there's one
Was,
scene when I saw it, and you probably know what I'm talking about, that I just was like appalled by. And that's the scene where, well, for context, the son had watched his mom and her partner have sex, and then later he like pins her to the ground while they're playing a game, and then he starts like dry humping her. And
oh God,
I was
yeah.
like, what? What? It was so like, because I had never seen anything like that in a movie. That's like, that's so gross. Same with he's stealing his mom's panties and like cutting them up.
Watching her naked in the shower, and
Yeah.
her mom, and then his mom is in bed and he's like touching her body. It's so like, I'm just like, like,
Yeah.
I hated it.
Yeah, there was something about it that like was really off-putting, but it made me appreciate the movie. I think I liked this movie quite a bit. It was just so off-putting. Like, it definitely puts you in that mood of just like being extremely uncomfortable, which I think it did effectively.
Oh yeah, I did
Yeah.
not. Unlike the last movie we talked about, this movie did not lose my interest at all at any point, because I couldn't look away.
Yeah. I will say the little boy, as usual, little child acting is just awful, and it is awful.
So that was my. I mean, besides the theme of it, but in terms of quality, that's my biggest issue with the movie. Where it's a very heavy role they're giving this kid, and he's trying to play a possessed father, and he's trying to be evil, but at the same time pretends he's like this cute little kid. And the kid's a terrible actor, just awful. He doesn't, just terrible. I can't say anything else.
No, just awful. Just like not playing it well, and also doesn't help. The movie is completely dubbed in normal Italian movie fashion, so that does not give it any points. Most of the performances aren't that great. I'd say our lead, she does a good job. Maybe a little overacting, but it comes a little bit with the territory. But her setup is like really messed up, because anytime her husband's brought up because he slashed his wrists, they're like, oh, he was a heroin addict. He did drugs and alcohol. It's okay. It's not that big of a deal. And she's still constantly blaming herself. It's like this whole turmoil thing. Really awful to see.
Nobody is sensitive to this woman at all. And
no.
When shit starts to really hit the fan and her son starts doing like these really like terrible, obvious things, and she's trying to tell her new husband, what a terrible, like what her son is doing. And she's taking her kid to like the psychologist, and everyone's like, he's fine. He's a little kid. Like, what do you mean you're scared of a little kid? and even like the new husband went to go question like the little boy. He's like, your mother is saying that you've been doing some really, odd things lately. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, he just lie, and he's a terrible liar. And the father's like, the husband's like, oh yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable explanation.
Yeah, I love that scene, because like the little boy had like smashed a picture earlier, and then like the dad's just like, what did you do to the picture? And all of a sudden says, what picture? And he's like, no, it's okay, son.
Oh, you.
Yeah. This guy, like, he is the, like, I guess the word is, like, a gaslighter, like, throughout this whole movie. And it's, like, with horrible excuses. Like, she's coming up to him, like, yeah, I think he cut up my panties. And he's like, oh, you probably tore them in the dryer, and it somehow got in his drawer. You're fine.
I know. And even towards the end of the movie, the son draws a picture of, well, this is getting to the spoiler part, when the son draws a picture of the wife murdering her first husband, and she shows it to her new husband. He's like, it's just a kid's drawing. What are you so freaked out about?
Yeah. Oh, your 6-year-old son's drawing people being murdered. It's no cause for alarm. Yeah, and I guess that I want to bring it up, and this is a spoiler because it is a twist ending. But I did like the twist because there is a bit where they go down in the basement, and her current husband is like messing with the bricks on the wall, and I guess that's where her husband's dead body is hidden. And come to find out, she murdered her husband and was sent to a psychiatric ward, and basically had gotten her memory like destroyed from it. And it was all set up. The husband wanted to make it look like a suicide and then end up with her.
Yeah, that part I didn't really understand. So her new husband said, "Oh, I found you," like that. So
Yeah.
did they pre-establish that they had a relationship like before, like while she was married to her first husband?
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that. I guess whenever I was watching it, I more took it like he was like a weird stalker. But then again, you're right. He did just show up and was like, "Yep, I found you," like that.
Because he even said he was the one who actually disposed of the body. He's the one that put it behind the wall.
Yeah.
And then he said he pushed the husband's boat out to the water to make it look like an accident.
Yeah, which I also found that a bit weird that like they would rule it like a suicide, right? Like, and they didn't have any body or anything. Yeah, and it was hidden behind the wall the whole time.
That's the first, suicide, but we don't have a body, so I guess it's a suicide.
Yeah, I guess so. But this is when, okay, because I found this movie interesting throughout, but it's definitely a slow burn. But once this reveal happens, it really goes off.
It does have a good payoff, and that's I really liked it because it started picking up the end. Because like I was not expecting that twist at all. I wasn't expecting that to be the case, and there was some really cool effects leading up to that because she's being terrorized by a box cutter. There's like one scene
box cutter,
a floating box cutter, and it turns out like that was the weapon she used to kill her first husband. So it's kind of like she's being haunted by all these symbolism and things like that. So it's really neat stuff like that. That it kind of right after the twist is revealed, you're like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, this movie has one of the first jump scares I've had with movies we watched on this show. And I love this scene. There's a scene in like the big freak out part of the end of the movie where she's standing at the end of the hallway. The little boy's at the end of the hallway. He's like, "Mom," runs towards her, and then as he's running up towards her, outside of the camera in pops her dead husband. And I just thought the way it was shot, it was very convincing to me. And I did a little jump. I was like, oh, that was good.
I wasn't expecting that either.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, the final sequence is just really cool. And the ending is really dark, I'll say. But I guess it fits into like morally, it is sound in a way.
I really wasn't sure at first about her first husband, and not to, because the guy looked a little weird to me. I don't know. Because at first I legitimately thought it was her, but like in makeup, because it didn't look to me. It didn't look like a man at first. It looked like it may have been like a woman with prosthetics, but it may have been some type of weird thing I didn't realize, but. I looked and like, no, that's an actual human man. So
it might be like the makeup that they put on him, maybe.
Or he's just a Swedish guy with like white blonde hair with facial hair.
Just
I don't know.
Really nice features. You never know. I guess one really one-off scene that I liked was the stepdad is a pilot. And he goes flying, and the sun cuts out the picture of his face, puts it on a swing, and then makes the plane have turbulence while he's flying it by pushing the swing. I thought that was the silliest but most creative thing I'd seen because I had never thought of that in my life.
I really thought that was good. I actually liked that one too. The other thing too was the piano that was laughing at her, like the little lid for the piano was just going, ah, ha, 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 ha.
Yeah. That reminded me of House, like the Japanese movie. Yeah.
I thought the same thing, either that or the Evil Dead 2 scene when like all the household objects were laughing.
Mhm.
And then the other thing too, which I liked, was there's a scene where she's running her finger along, like her hand along the
Oh
piano
yeah.
keys, and a razor blade was shoved in between one of the keys, so she ends up slicing her finger.
Yeah, that made me cringe a little because like that I just thinking about that, right? Sliding your hand and then there's the blade there because the box cutter is like a big motif in this movie. That's actually that just like connects everything. It's even in the poster.
There's there's a lot of cutting in this movie. I will say a lot of things getting slashed.
A lot, yeah. But yeah, I mean, that about I think covers it. I enjoyed this movie. If you heard what we were talking about and that's off-putting, I totally get it.
Yes.
I totally get that. I would recommend something like Blood and Black Lace or Black Sunday for Mario Bava movies if you'd like to go into that direction. Not any weird child stuff.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I echo that. If there's anything we've said in here that sounds really disturbing, by all means. But if you're really looking for a horror movie that starts pushing some boundaries, then this might be the one for you.
Yeah, it's definitely up there. But yeah, that's about it for Shock. So Ryan, I guess my question to you is, what's coming up next time?
Well, next time, Nathan, we're going to be digging into our viewer mailbag. And we're actually going to be doing one of our recommendations that was sent in by one of our viewers. It is going to be 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And
All
you
right.
can watch that movie on Disney Plus. If you got that service subscribed, or you got it lying around the DVD or VHS somewhere, feel free to watch along with us.
Yeah. And Ryan, I'm looking forward to your James Mason impression for next episode. Okay.
My famous James Mason impression. I'll be working on it.
Yeah. But yeah, hear that we are doing a mailbag recommendation. We love getting recommendations from you guys. If you have any recommendations, send it over to drive-in double feature podcast at gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'd also love to hear any opinions you have on these movies. We love reading about it. And yeah. Oh, and check out our Twitter. Drive-In Double Feature Podcast is on Twitter. Be sure to give us a follow over there. We're always making posts.
Yep. Follow us at DIDF Pod on Twitter.
Perfect. And you know what? See you next time.
See you next time.